Picture this: Palatine Hill in Rome under the soft light of a Mediterranean moon. Fountains flow quietly, sending cool mist into the air. The smell of roses and rich wine fills the night. Through the open arches of a golden villa, silk rustles softly. It looks like a dream, the good life of an empire at its peak. But listen closer, it's not peaceful. This is the backdrop for a private show where Augustus, the ruler of Rome, is free from every moral rule. Step past the whispers of servants and the shine of luxury, and what you hear isn't joy but the restless hum of a twisted mind. The emperor is playing a cruel game, mocking both love and power. The people around him aren't partners, but puppets in a theater of desire and control. What took place behind those walls would shock even a city built on blood and cruelty. The secrets of Nero's chamber tell a darker story than most could imagine. If you're ready to go into the most corrupt and frightening parts of ancient Rome, stay with me. This isn't just about a tyrant, it's a warning of how a childhood shaped by control and corruption can destroy a soul. Long before the fire, long before the killings, the roots of his dark desires grew inside the palace. Nero Claudius Caesar Augustus Germanicus wasn't born to rule. He was a pawn in his mother's ruthless plan. Agrippina the Younger, as fierce as she was ambitious, shaped his path to the throne. This wasn't a mother's love. It was an obsession that turned their bond into something disturbing. Writers like Tacitus and Suetonius suggested the relationship crossed lines that should never have been crossed. Whispers of incest filled the palace and spread through the elite. The rumors were so strong they became a constant subject of talk among Rome's upper class. This alleged affair broke every sacred and social rule, showing Agrippina's total control. It taught Nero early that even the most holy ties could be bent for pleasure or power. His tutor, the philosopher Seneca, known for his stoic wisdom, did little to stop him. Nero's desires grew without limits. As a boy he wandered Rome at night with friends, wearing disguises, picking fights, and assaulting strangers. These acts weren't random mischief. They were tests of power, steps toward the darker acts he would later commit. He learned that his name alone was enough to shield him. To him, rules didn't exist. It was the first taste of a power that was more than politics, it was the power to take whatever he wanted. The twisted bond with his mother and the violence in the streets became the base of Nero's mind. They were the opening chapters of the terror to come. He was a man who blurred the line between love and control, between sacred and unholy. He didn't just hold power, he devoured it. Nero was more than a ruler. He was an artist desperate for attention. But his stage wasn't only the theater, it was his whole life. And the most shocking shows happened in private. This was the time of Roman orgies, not just lust, but staged performances of excess. Nero turned them into his own theater of flesh, where he alone directed the scenes. His golden house, the Domus Aurea, wasn't just a palace of riches. It was the perfect stage for his twisted plays. With dining rooms that turned and fountains hidden in walls, the building itself reflected his dramatic mind. In this place, the line between reality and fantasy disappeared. Nero's need for performance didn't stop in public concerts or plays. It entered his private world, turning even his closest moments into strange rituals. He hosted huge feasts that soon became disturbing roleplays, forcing nobles and their wives into humiliating acts. These events weren't only about lust, they were built to mock and shame, exposing his need for dominance. Nero didn't just want bodies. He wanted souls. He wanted to crush willpower, to bend men and women alike into living props for his twisted plays. Tacitus tells of a notorious feast staged on an artificial island built in a Roman lake. It was less a banquet and more a nightmare, something that reads like hallucination, yet for Nero, it was real. He was the producer, the lead actor, the only star. Draped in animal skins, he would lunge at his guests, men and women, tying them to posts, chasing them as if they were prey in a hunt. These weren't ordinary orgies. They were staged hunts, violent rituals, designed not just to satisfy him but to strip away dignity itself. It wasn't lust driving him. It was domination. A message that Rome's finest, its senators, its nobles, its wives, were nothing but puppets to his will. The whole thing played like theater. The set never dimmed. The actors never left the stage. The fear was not just of what Nero might do to you, but what he might force you to do. In his world, performance and madness became one. This darkness went beyond gender, beyond identity. His obsession was to reshape reality itself, to impose his fantasies on living flesh. That's where Sporus enters the story, one of the strangest, most disturbing tales in Roman history. After Nero killed his wife Poppaea in a fit of rage, he became consumed with grief. Then he saw a young eunuch who resembled her. His name was Sporus. But Nero's desire wasn't simple longing. He turned the boy into a project. He had him castrated, dressed him in royal silks, and paraded him as if he were Rome's empress. He even staged a wedding, complete with dowry and marriage bed. This was no romance. It was possession. Sporus became a canvas for Nero's fantasies, a version of womanhood crafted by force, a replacement for what he had destroyed. Was it Poppaea he wanted? Was it his mother's ghost he was trying to recreate? No one can say. But what's clear is that Nero treated human beings like clay to be reshaped, a god in his own mind molding reality to fit his desires. But even the gods weren't safe from him. Rome's holiest figures, the Vestal Virgins, were the very symbol of purity and divine protection. Their vow of chastity was sacred, their bodies were considered the foundation of Rome's survival. To harm one was punishable by death. But to Nero, their untouchability wasn't a boundary. It was a temptation. Sworn to 30 years of purity, the Vestals kept the eternal flame of Vesta alive. To defile them was to spit in the face of Rome itself. Yet ancient accounts claim Nero pursued them. At least one Vestal was violated. For the empire, this wasn't just scandal, it was sacrilege. A crime against the gods. By crossing this line, Nero wasn't simply abusing women, he was proving that nothing, not even the divine, could stop him. And then came the fire. The summer of 64 AD. Flames tore through Rome for 9 days. Entire districts burned, smoke filled the skies, screams drowned in the roar of destruction. Historians debate whether Nero ordered it. What they don't debate is how he responded. When the fire threatened his golden house, he returned from Antium. But instead of leading relief, instead of rallying the people, he climbed the roof of his palace. And as the city turned to ash, Nero sang. He performed his own verses about the fall of Troy, strumming his lyre as Rome burned beneath him. The great fire wasn't tragedy to him. It was theater. The burning streets became his backdrop, the cries of the dying his chorus. What Rome saw as disaster, Nero saw as performance, a stage set ablaze to glorify his name. He wasn't mourning the flames. He was thrilled by them. The fire was more than destruction. It was possession. A sick union between emperor and empire, as if he were both the lover and executioner of his own city. Rome's fall that summer wasn't an accident. It was dominance. A brutal declaration that he could erase and rebuild the world as he pleased. Out of the ashes would rise his golden dream, the Domus Aurea. The fire and his cruelty were tied together, not by chance, but by the mind of a man who saw Rome not as a home, but as a toy for his darkest fantasies. His rule didn't drift into madness. It plunged headlong. Each scandal, each murder, each act of humiliation pulled him deeper into a fantasy where he wasn't just emperor, he was divine. What began as lust and power became ritual. His bedchamber turned into a temple, his body and his victims the sacrifices. And in his mind, he wasn't worshipping the gods. He was replacing them. Near the end, paranoia and arrogance consumed him. The people despised him. The Senate turned. The empire shook. Yet Nero clung to his delusions. He dressed as Apollo, the sun god, convinced he was no longer mortal. Each act grew stranger, more violent, more desperate, as if he could carve divinity into himself through ritual and horror. For him, the final curtain wasn't death. It was apotheosis. He believed his perversions, his cruelty, his marriages and violations, were all rehearsals for the ultimate act, becoming a god. In his shattered mind, every boundary, family, flesh, faith, was just another barrier to smash. But when the empire rose against him, Nero's divinity collapsed. His downfall wasn't the death of a ruler, it was the fall of a man who could no longer tell the difference between fantasy and truth. He died clinging to his illusion, still convinced he mattered, even as history erased him. Now picture Palatine Hill once more. The villa is silent. The frescoes gone. The marble floors cracked. The fountains dry. No perfume of roses, no silk curtains, only the cold wind through empty arches. The grandeur was always a mask, and what lies beneath is decay. His reign wasn't a monument to power. It was a monument to ruin. Rome endured. The gods endured. Nero did not. His empire of desire was nothing but the tantrum of a broken child handed an empire. His legacy isn't glory. It's rot. For all his cruelty, all his hunger, he was fragile, terrified of being forgotten. And in the end, that's exactly what happened. Rome outlived him. His gods ignored him. His stage went dark. And yet, the shadow of his theater still lingers. Behind today's palaces, boardrooms, and halls of power, you have to wonder, how many Neros are still out there? Men who see the world not as people, but as a stage for their twisted show. If you want more stories like this, tales of the forbidden, the hidden, the unsettling truths history tried to bury, hit like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts below.